Okay, so looks like we're
Um,
recording now. So, how did I
good.
even how did we even get into contact? I feel like it's been a long time, and then just sometime randomly you DM
Well,
me.
you send me, yeah. So you sent me a chat on Reddit
Oh yeah,
a
yeah.
while back. The way I remember it is that I was watching on my own a video from Hassan Piker about German politics.
Oh, okay.
Then, well, he was talking to a German leftist who lives in Ireland, I think. I don't remember his name. Apologies. And then while he was talking, he also referred to how German government becomes more and more oppressive or repressive about Palestinians and Palestinian activists.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, I live in Germany. I'm an activist, Jewish, anti-Zionist. So and I come from Israel, which for this is not relevant. By the way, the sound in the background, I wonder if it's because of you or because of me.
It's
The
because of
camera is
me for
standing at a
sure.
low frame rate.
There's like a
Yeah,
construction
whatever.
crew
Okay.
right beside me.
All right. In any case, so I tried to contact Hassan, but I have no idea how to do that. So I tried to write in the subreddit of him, introducing myself and saying, hey, I can discuss about specifically how the German government uses Holocaust and remembering and protecting Jews to actually oppress Palestinians
Hold on.
and deepen the.
I'm gonna go inside real quick.
Should I
The noise
continue
is
or?
too much.
All right, I see.
Okay.
Just let me know when.
How's that noise?
For me, it sounded great before. I'm not a audio guy, so I don't know.
Okay. All right.
In any case, so
Sorry, I was
should I
interrupting you.
start all over? Should I?
No,
Everything is okay.
just go. This is an
Forget
unprof.
about introduce. Do you want me to just introduce myself,
Yeah,
or
introduce yourself.
who am I? What am I? So, um, my online name is Pelegs. I'm from Israel originally. I grew up there. Was born there. I'm Jewish. My family is from Germany. I moved back to Germany about over a decade ago. Uh, while growing up in Israel, I was Zionist in the beginning. Around the age of 18 or so, I became, not immediately, but as part of a process, anti-Zionist, and I became more and more active in anti-Zionist circles, more active with Palestinians, citizens or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the Communist Party of Israel, which is a joint Jewish-Palestinian party, majority Palestinians. And I was active in that until I left Israel over a decade ago and came back to Germany. And here I'm active with a specific Jewish pro-Palestinian group called. So we're called the Yiddish Stimme in short, which means Jewish voice.
Okay.
Our longer name is Jüdische Stimme für gerechten Frieden im Nahost, which means the Jewish voice for a just peace in the Middle East. Um, it is somewhat modeled after the American Jewish voice for peace, but I'm not too knowledgeable about the details.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of network of Jewish organizations in Europe that are more or less anti-Zionist,
So
pro-Palestinian.
it's not like one organization that spans across Europe. It's just this is kind of the German organization, and then
Every country, yes, every country has something similar. I don't know if every country, but some countries in Europe, and then we're all together in a network that connects us, whose name I forgot at the moment, but I can check.
okay.
And specifically in Germany, because of the political situation that um, it's more about the political situation, yes, but more the fact that Jews still get here a higher place to talk about, especially things to do with the Holocaust
Yeah.
and Israel, obviously, then we're trying to, as much as we can, to use the fact that we're Jewish and we oppose Zionism and we oppose the way Israel, well, Zionism in general, to use our voice to try to bring to the front alternative voices about this topic, specifically Palestinian voices, because Palestinians here are, I would say, oppressed definitely more than Jews here.
Okay.
That's almost obvious. Generally, Muslim immigrants are not seen positively politically. I'll be gentle.
Yeah. Could you
And
get into
they
some?
are being silenced.
Yeah. Could you get into
Sorry,
some
yeah.
specifics of how they're oppressed?
So first of all, when they do act for Palestinian rights or against Israel, they get silenced very fast, very aggressively. If they that's not specifically about Palestinians so much as I would say immigrants, especially immigrants from majority Muslim countries in
Yeah.
general, and they're being targeted much more than the average political non-consensual, no consensus politics here. Um,
And is it?
like uh, congresses and how do you call that? Conferences for Palestinians are being cancelled much more easily, if not almost always. Uh, they're being arrested much more and much more aggressively when they do demonstrate. Politically, they're always tied. Doesn't matter how peaceful or on which aspect the demonstration is. It's always uh, Islamist. It's always titled as how do you say, not titled and presented in the media and by
Oh,
politicians
yeah.
as an Islamist or pro-Islamist or pro-Hamas demonstrations, etc., etc. Now, Jews, on the other hand, because of our sad history with Germany, um, politically we're still being treated more positively. So on many different levels, people when they say, okay, this is a Jewish organization that speaks, or someone from a Jewish organization, they'll be much more open to it because they still carry the German guilt about the Holocaust. So um, the difference is very pronounced. So, for example, there were cases where uh, Palestinian groups or groups for Palestinian rights, led by immigrants mostly, were trying to have book rooms or spaces to have events,
Yeah.
and they were denied. Now, you don't necessarily have to give a reason, but they're very easily denied, and then just it doesn't happen. But if you register it on our name, and our name is Jewish Voice, and our logo is Star of David, like we're a Jewish organization, it happened in the past that we can actually have those spaces for our events, and then a Palestinian organization have their events there. So like you really see the difference in the way that
That's interesting.
uh, on different levels of politics they approach us and how they approach. Palestinians are a specific subset of that. Immigrants from the third world in general, uh, more pronouncedly from Muslim majority countries.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And was that like, was there even a protest group in Israel that was like you said you're part of the communist organization in Israel? Is that something?
I was a member of the Communist Party.
Oh,
I'm not living there anymore. So I'm not, and I have, as much as I have it's they have a place in my heart. The party, I have a lot of fundamental disagreements with them on
Okay.
So I'm not a member anymore. I have a lot of friendly and political ties still to people there, so I know what's happening. I get updates and stuff, but I am definitely not an active member in any way.
Yeah. Are
But when I
you
was living there, I was a member.
how do like the because I'm assuming you're involved in politics of some kind in Germany, just kind of by by your outspoken
Less,
nature.
less than I would like to, but yeah.
How do those political groups kind of interact with the whole issue of protesting Zionism? Is there like a party that's firmly behind groups that are protesting Zionism, or is it kind of like America, where the Republicans and the Democrats, no matter how progressive you are, there's no one that's like, no, Israel should bring down it, like stop being an ethno state?
So somewhat like in the US, as far as I know about US politics, which is not that much, majority, the biggest parties, the ones that are represented in parliament and the Bundestag, and also represented on a local level, so the state level. Uh, just in case, I'm sure you know, but to anyone who doesn't know, Germany is a federation, much like the US, federation of states. So you have politics on the federal level and on the state level. In any case, all the parties that are represented on both levels uh, either are very, very openly pro-Zionist and pro-Israel,
Hmm.
like the Republicans and the Democrats, or very modestly uh, criticize some aspects of Israel.
Okay.
The, so, and the only one that really does that, I'm saying, as if there are several. There's actually only one party that is represented in the federal parliament, the Bundestag, that is actually somewhat critical of Israel, which is the Die Linke, literally means the left. It's some kind of a democratic socialist to social democrat party. They have a lot of different groups in them, but in practice they are leftist social democrats, um, and even they are really careful in criticizing
Yeah.
Israel. They stand firmly behind a two-state solution as a Zionist state and I would say semi-autonomous Palestinian state in the West
Right.
Bank and maybe Gaza. I don't know if I, they weren't really loud against the genocide, the ongoing genocide in Gaza.
Hmm.
I don't think they even call it genocide.
The war.
And that's like the most left you'll get in the mainstream representative politics. All
Yeah,
the other
definitely.
parties are completely pro-Israel to the point where even the Social Democratic Party and the Green Party that supposedly are for peace, etc., support completely arming Israel and uh, calling it a genocide is anti-Semitism, and all
Oh,
that
okay. Yeah.
crap. On the non-represented parties, there is a major one that split from the Linke a while ago, the uh, Bewegung Sarah Wagenknecht, that are more like left-wing populist. They almost got into the Bundestag in February, and they are much more critical.
Okay.
But again, not to the extent that I think is enough. Um, the only parties that are really more, um, I would say, very, how do you say that, visibly are
Yeah.
against the genocide and call it a genocide are, I might miss some parties, so apologies, is the Communist Party, which is the DKP, Deutsches Kommunistische Partei, Deutsche Kommunistische Partei, the MLPD, which is the Marxist-Leninist party, which is a Maoist party as far as I know. I'm not that much knowledgeable about them, and how do they call the Mera 25 or something like that, from the Greek ex-Greek finance minister.
Hmm.
Uh, the guy that I keep forgetting his name, but he's bald. He rides a bike. I can, while you're talking, I can check,
Okay.
look for his name. I forgot. Uh, and they are much more directly pro-Palestinian.
But like, would you say that they really don't have that much power to affect change? Like they're minor parties.
Nothing. I think the entire, so this here I'm checking on a different.
Okay. Yeah, because in America,
So
there's really, it's as you said, there's like the pro-genocide party, and then there's the party that's like pro-faster genocide. That's the Democrats
yeah,
and Republicans. And then you do have the
totally.
yeah, and then you have like the libertarians that are like, okay, well, stop giving money to outside of America, and then you have Jill Stein, who does call it a genocide, but she pretty much only exists to try to spoil the Democrats' chances of winning the presidency every 4 years.
I heard people describing it like this. I heard other opinions. I will neither agree or disagree, but they're definitely not an important player, or
Right. Yeah.
maybe they're important to some extent, but they're like, we say in Hebrew, it's batel b'shishim. It means so minor that it's irrelevant. By the way, you were
Okay.
asking, this Mera 25 has 2,500 members in Germany, which is
Okay.
nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
no offense to them, I appreciate them, but and they are based around Yanis Varoufakis.
Oh yeah.
That's the Greek finance
Yeah.
minister.
That's Varoufakis.
Uh, so he's, for example, more outspoken about the genocide and Israel in general, which is
Yeah.
nice. The movement itself also, but they're like the average person. If you ask, I assume would not even know whom you're talking about. Like they're not like those voices are either considered extreme and small, and like maybe once in a few years we have elections, you see the posters, maybe. But most people don't really know much about it. So it's kind of like in the U.S. in this sense. And in Germany, there's the added. Again, I don't know how it is in the U.S. I've never been there, but there is an added layer of like, how dare you speak against Israel? Don't you know that Jews suffered the Holocaust and we must protect them at any cost? Which is, by the way, very patronizing. As a Jewish descendant of Holocaust survivors myself, I must say, Germany doesn't speak for me and they don't protect me. But okay. But this is the general uh, view of this. So maybe if you're Jewish, you might be able to criticize Israel more easily because of this. But
Right.
if you're not Jewish, especially if you're Palestinian or Muslim or an immigrant, when I say immigrant, I don't mean immigrants from the U.S. or Canada. Yeah, I mean uh, immigrants from not from the imperial core, so to say. Then you're immediately like looked at as if you're trying to bring back the Nazis. Like it's like, how dare you? How dare you say anything against the state of Israel? How dare you speak? Which for a lot of Germans is equivalent to speaking against Jews.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it becomes really hypocritical and cynical when you really look at the politics, and then you realize, I mean, obvious, always like this, that they use this in order to justify uh, their economic and geopolitical interests. For example, okay, we must protect Jews. We support the state of Israel, so we sell weapons to Israel.
Yeah.
And everyone who says otherwise is an anti-Semite. Here it's illegal to be an anti-Semite, so we can just silence them. We can throw them into prison, give them fines, or there were a few weeks ago the case now in Berlin where they're trying. I don't know what happened with that, but there were people in demonstrators in an pro-Palestinian demonstration,
Mm-hmm.
non-Germans, that are now being expelled from Germany for
Because
participating in that
because they were demonstrating.
because of that.
Wow.
And some of them are even European citizens. So removing a European citizen from a European member state back to their home state is not that straightforward. It's not easy. It's not like any state removing foreign citizens.
Yeah.
They have much more protection. And yet they are doing that as well, because when it comes to the Palestinian issue, the German state is super aggressive.
So,
To the point where, sorry, yeah.
just finish your thought. To the point where they're removing
To
people.
the point where even our organization, which is a Jewish organization, like it's would be very difficult to honestly say that we're anti-Semites, right? Because like
Right.
we're all Jews, German Jews, most of us with ancestry that are Holocaust survivors. Like we are the people they're talking about when they say they're protecting Jews and learning from the Holocaust.
Right.
Even us, they are. I don't want to say oppressive because like it's nothing compared to the level that they apply against uh, brown immigrants. I'll just say like that because I don't have to specify Palestinians from Muslim countries and or etc. So even though it's not to that level at all, they still are trying to suppress our voice. For example, I can tell you a story that happened 2 years ago, so even before October 7th.
Yeah.
We have a member, Shir Heber. Also, he grew up in Israel and moved here a while ago. He's an economist, doctor of economy. I'm not 100% sure if this is what his PhD is about, but he gives lectures on this topic. And in the state of Baden-Württemberg, he was supposed to, about, I think even more than 2 years ago, was supposed to give a talk about child labor in Palestine
Okay.
to the to the teachers' labor union. If I
And
remember
this
correctly,
speech
this
was in
DIV.
Germany. This talk was supposed to
Sorry?
be. This
In
talk.
Germany, in Baden-Württemberg is the southmost western state. It's
Oh, okay.
Stuttgart. So that's Stuttgart, Heidelberg, Mannheim, etc. Karlsruhe. I don't want to offend any people from Baden. And he was supposed to give this talk, and then it was cancelled suddenly. No explanation given. And he dug a bit and talked to people, and apparently what happened was that I don't remember exactly what's the title, but the person in the state government that is responsible to combating anti-Semitism sent a secret letter to the union, to the teachers' union, telling them that this guy, Dr. Shir Hever, is an anti-Semite. Again,
Oh my God.
he's a Jew from Israel, yeah, is an anti-Semite, and that they should not allow him to give this talk. And they had to,
And
under pressure from the government.
and it was a university that was like hosting the talk, or like what organization was hosting
I'm
it?
not sure. So the organization was the teachers' union.
Oh,
I
okay.
can check the name of it. I think it was uh, GIV. Yeah, the GIV. I don't remember what the initials are for, but the GIV of Baden-Württemberg. So it's a teachers' union.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and what apparently happened, as far as I understand the story, is that this office that is responsible for combating anti-Semitism kind of did some spying and knew somehow that there was about to be a talk by him about this topic, and just secretly sent a letter to the higher ups in the union telling
Yeah.
them that's not okay, is an anti-Semite, blah blah blah. It's a crazy story, and that's like against Jewish organization, yeah.
Yeah.
So like you can imagine that that's the most positive way that the government, positive and relatively positive that the government
Yeah. At least they didn't
well,
blackbag him.
oppresses Palestinian voice. Yeah, like a Palestinian would just like they might even if he's a resident so not a citizen, they might cancel his visa or I don't know put a strain on his visa. They might deport. They do aggressively arrest people. Like, so when you see that even Jews cannot speak about it out loud in Germany
We'll head
too
out this
openly,
door, and I think, yep, he's
and
got it curved right over there
yeah,
for us.
oof,
Yeah,
that's more noisy than it was
there's
from
some
outside.
background
Okay,
info or some background noise.
yeah.
Um, well, I think like something that I've been looking into like a little bit, and I definitely want to look into it more, but it's something that you've been talking about, which is kind of the power of being an outspoken anti-Zionist while also being Jewish, because it's not so easy to just sweep you under the rug and say you're a anti-Semite. Um, Even though people still do that, but it's like
No, no,
it's
they definitely do that, but
it's a harder pill to swallow, I
the
guess.
average person, exactly. The average person would be more like, wait, what? So uh, I I'll tell you how I see it in general. So there's a YouTuber that I know from Argentina, Bed Empanada, and he coined the term
I thought you were going to
called
say David Pakman.
Jewish exceptionalism. Sorry?
I thought you were going to say David Pakman. He's also Jewish from
No, but he's
Argentina.
American. Yeah, but I mean, whatever the name of Bed Empanada is,
Yeah,
I don't know. And he termed recently this on the term Jewish
yeah,
exceptionalism when it comes to
yeah. I heard
specifically
him
this.
talking about that.
Uh, we have to have Jews speaking for Palestinians, for the Palestinians to be heard, and it's ridiculous. And I agree with him 100%. Like, it shouldn't be like that. Um, uh, Palestinians don't need our permission in any way. We shouldn't be in the front. Uh, but in practice, in Germany specifically, again, I don't know other places. I've never lived outside of Germany or Israel. In practice, because of this decades of indoctrination,
Hmm.
um, I keep getting that there is something disconnected. Maybe it is on my video.
Might be
Okay,
your audio and video is
maybe it's
coming through
some
fine.
delay. Is okay. Okay. Anyway, because of that, and what I gave as an example earlier, I gave an example earlier. I would say we have an obligation to speak because um, Palestinians are being completely silenced and ignored. Like, they can't even get to the point where most usually, yeah, they even being listened to even skeptically. So I think it's our obligation to, as Jews here, to say no. You're not talking. You're not protecting us. Israel is not representing all Jews. Israel does indeed is indeed very problematic, and at the very least commits horrific uh, crimes, and then divert the attention to Palestinians to talk. It's unfortunate. I would rather that not be like that, but that's reality in many cases. And yeah, I mean, it's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah,
What can I say?
and
This is
in your experience, have you seen that strategy actually being effective? Like you gave the example of we would book like venues underneath the name of this Jewish organization I'm a part of, and then give the floor to Palestinian speakers to talk about their experiences. Um, that sounds like pretty effective, but I would assume the more you do that, the more um, kind of like anti-Zionist groups label you as an anti-Semitic group.
oh yeah, 100%. And we're, as time progresses, we find it less and less easy to find these avenues. So it is a temporary strategy, of course, like a lot of strategies, I would say in general. But again, we have to do what we can. And as long as we're still legal and still having some voice, then we must voice our objection to Zionism in general, the state of Israel the way it is. And well, technically, I would say it's illegal in Germany. to be openly against the state of Israel,
Oh, really?
like the existence of it. So for the sake of this talk, when I say against Israel, I mean
Against
I
the
support
genocide.
a one state. No, I guess the genocide is a derivative. No, I'm okay saying
Oh,
that
that's legal to
I
say?
support. I'm not sure about the legality exactly, but just to be clear, okay. Uh, I personally support one state of all people equal in
Hmm.
Palestine, uh, with the right of return to Palestinians, reparations,
Right.
etc.
Now, a lot of people would
Because a
say
lot of the
that
time,
is in favor of the destruction of the state of Israel, just by arguing for like a
okay,
one-state solution.
fine. But in practice, yes, the state of Israel will cease to be the way it is now,
Yeah.
and its essence of the state of Israel is Jewish supremacy, and settler colonialism, and ethnic majority. Yes, sorry. Uh, but I do want that if I say it, it's clear what I mean. Because
Yeah.
when people say I want to destroy the state of Israel, out of context, sounds like you want to just, kill everyone there. And
Hmm.
like, I'm not happy about that. I have family and friends there. Like, I obviously don't want that. I understand the reality that decolonization must happen, which means that Palestinians must have the right to return and must get reparations, and there should be a state where they're equal. Um, but that also means that the Jews who live there now should be able to live there safely.
Yeah.
But that's for the people there to figure out. I'm not going to dictate anything. So when I say that I'm or other organizations or whatever against the state of Israel, that's what I mean.
Hmm. And then one thing that I wanted to ask you is something that I've been something that I've been looking into lately is how people that are speaking out against Israel are actually like Jews specifically that are speaking out against Israel are being labeled as almost non-Jews, and there seems to be a push in Zionist organizations to label or to define Jewishness as support for Israel. Has that been something that you've experienced, like as a Jewish person and as someone that's lived in Israel?
100%, 100%. So the first political activism I did in Israel was a bit embarrassing, but when I was young, naive, and Zionist, I was a member of the youth of the Social Democratic Party, Meretz.
Okay.
Uh, they're like that party spans from like center left to the most left fringes of Zionism. They never crossed to anti-Zionism, not at all, but they exist somewhere in between labor Zionism and the most left parts of Zionism you can have.
I need you to. I'm gonna
Um,
need you to go, after you finish this thought. I'm gonna need you to go back and tell me what leftist Zionism is because I'm fascinated by that. Oh, oh no, you froze.
I was a member of the youth of that. My family is uh, used to be more oriented. The house I grew up in oriented towards this party.
Okay.
And one time I was out in the street with some, some I, I don't know how to call it. Like we held banners,
Yeah.
whatever, for some very specific thing about the occupation in the West Bank. Something very mild. But in
Mm.
Israel, it's considered, and even back then, 20 years ago, uh, very, very left wing, even outside of the consensus, the main political consensus. And yeah, people would curse us as being, first of
Wow.
all, they called us whores of Arafat, because back then, Zonot shel Arafat, sorry for the bad words, but if it's in Hebrew, I guess YouTube doesn't really know, so they won't
Yeah.
censor you. Um, as in, like, Arafat being the big evil,
Yeah.
although he sold his people for, but okay, that's a different topic. And they would call us non-real Jews. They have, first of all, there is a concept erev rav in Judaism and in Hebrew, which means the small groups of people from the desert that joined the Jewish. It's not joined exactly, but like not smuggled into the Jewish
Oh,
people leaving
interesting.
Egypt.
So almost like a
So
parasitic
like this
group?
is a yeah. So it's a way to. I don't know much about it. I'm not religious. I'm an atheist. But I think it's a way for people to be able to say, you're officially Jewish because you come from a Jewish
Mm-hmm.
family and you're acknowledged as Jew. But in reality, you came from one of those non-Jewish groups, so you're trying to no, it's an excuse to say exactly that I'm not a real Jew. I would hear it all the time, especially from more religious people, more secular people. Just say that I'm a traitor to the Jews, uh, depending on their political leanings. Um, and of course, once you cross into anti-Zionist territory, even leftist Zionists tend to be very upset with you, to say the least. Um, Now, what is leftist Zionist? Oh, so you asked.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So it's hard to because I
Oh,
hear you can.
sorry. Yeah, I'm curious. Is it just like, oh yeah, we're in favor
So,
of an ethno state, but like let's treat the people we're subjugating humanely? Is that kind of the idea behind
so
it?
like everything else, it's on a spectrum. So first of all, economically, you can be more left or right
Yeah.
generally, right? Like you can be a pro ethno state even very harshly, but say, okay, the economy should be socialized.
Okay.
So
That
there's
makes
that.
sense.
There's labor Zionist. I mean, labor Zionist was the engine of Zionist settler colonialism and the establishment of Israel and its first years. So, Mapai, Mapam, and all those groups, the kibbutzim, etc. But uh, in the sense of like the Palestinian issue, uh, left-wing Zionists would say, okay, we want an independent Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, yes or no? I don't know. Things changed since October 7. It might be that
Yeah.
of them gave up on of seeing Gazans as humans. But in general, let's have an autonomous, independent Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza that will live side by side with Israel while Israel remains the state of the Jewish people. Uh, Very few of them will be positive about the right of return of Palestinian refugees and their
Mm-hmm.
descendants uh, to the state. Some of them might even say, yeah, during the 1948 war, but they will call the Independence War, uh, some crimes happened, but in general, we were on the right side, being
Okay.
Zionists. And maybe we should, and we should treat them humanely, and they should have nominal. The Palestinian citizens of Israel should have nominal equal rights, but the state is still the state for uh, the Jews. Some of them, and that's really a fringe as far as I came across, would even say, let's have a state that is not defined as a state for Jews. Let's even have a state
Oh,
for all the
really?
citizens. But yes, but uh, they won't support the right of return. And I think the right of return is a really big um, border, let's say, differentiating
Differentiator?
between who is in practice a Zionist and in practice against Zionism. Because without the right of return, essentially, you cannot in any meaningful way implement decolonization in Palestine,
Hmm.
right? Because as long as you have a nominal Jewish majority that is artificial, because
Yeah.
it's being held by separating Palestinians out, um, then in practice you can have all the equal laws you want in the books, which
Right.
Israel to some extent has. They always play this. Oh, it's all equal and legal here. Though in practice, you will have Jewish um, sovereignty over like the entire area, including Palestinian citizens. And so you can be nominally for state for all its for we say Medinat kol ezrachia, state for all its citizens. But the Palestinian citizens in Israel are a minority. They're about 20 to 25% at the most.
Yeah.
So what do you get in practice? You get continuation of the. It's kind of like South Africa, where okay, apartheid officially ended, but economically situation more or less stayed. So you still have
Right.
like uh, economically white South Africans still have access to much more resources. They like still prospering, while black South Africans are still in practice second tier citizens in the economic sense. So like it's very similar to this. I will soon have to finish. I will tell you when, but
Okay, no problem.
I will
We're
update
gonna
you. But just know that we have about 10, 20 minutes.
Okay, we're definitely gonna
Maybe.
have to have another conversation because this is really
Yeah, I would
interesting
be happy
talking to
to.
you.
Of course. Um, I there was a thing when we spoke last time,
Hmm.
off the record, where you asked me some questions about the Hebrew language.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. We were
I was
having
so
uh
unrelated. I out of the blue, I suddenly recalled that.
no, yeah, we were talking about some stuff last time that I do want to ask you again. I keep like for some reason I just keep thinking like your username, and it's like, oh yeah, that means like river or brook or something.
Brook, yeah.
Brook, yeah.
Ach in German, yeah, yeah. All, I think almost all Hebrew names. I guess all names in general, but like Hebrew names have a meaning when you like literal language meaning when you dig down. Uh, yeah, no, I'm just it's super unimportant, like extremely. But as someone who grew up in Israel and speaks Hebrew as a native language, the way that people pronounce words in Hebrew outside of Israel really annoys
Hmm.
me because
Oh
it's always
really?
incorrect. Yes, I think
Yeah.
the example I gave you was hasbara for
Hasbara
propaganda.
instead of
Yeah, so people say
Hasbara.
hasbara,
Yeah.
yeah, or hasbara, yeah, exactly. No, it's hasbara. Usually Hebrew words have stress on either the last syllable or the one
Bara.
before the last syllable. Yeah. So or names for like different names.
And what does Hasbara translate into like literally?
Explaining something like
Oh,
that.
explaining. Okay.
Uh, so to explain would be lehasbir. Hasbara would be the noun that
Like an
like I'm not a
explanation.
linguist, but like kind of like this. Because it's also not true because explanation is hesber.
Oh, okay.
And hasbara is like the female version of that. I think it's a word they coined especially for propaganda. I'm not
Okay.
sure where it came from, like, but
Interesting.
it's being seen very positively, by the way, in Israel. The way it's the concept
Really?
is, yeah, it's like because the general mindset is uh, the world hates us
Mm-hmm.
Jews. Yeah, no, Israel is as a derivative of that. They're all against us. They're all anti-Semites at the end of the day. The only difference is some of them are okay with us sometimes, and some of them agree with us that the Arabs are bad. I'm
Interesting.
what do I say? Drawing it very, very wide strokes, or however you say it in English.
Broad strokes.
Um, Broad strokes. Thank you. And then, like, you really want you really live in like a constant. I have to we have to explain to the world how bad the Arabs are. And just a side point here, a side note here. Um, Israelis will almost never talk about Palestinians.
They say
Yeah,
Arabs.
definitely not. They say it's Arabs in general because
So,
like the view is that all Arabs are uh, one big uh, anti-Semitic horde that
yeah.
is just evil and wants to kill us, and somehow a continuation of the Nazis. It's hard to explain, but like also the way they teach it in school, it's always
Oh my
kind of like a
God.
continue. Like
That's so.
the yeah, sorry, the Pharaoh wanted to kill us, then other
Oh
nations, the
yeah.
Greek, the Romans, the Christians, whatever, and then the Nazis, and then we came to Israel started, and now the Arabs want to finish Hitler's job, and like you really see it. For example, if you talk to Israelis and talk about is Israeli Arab, yeah, that they
Right.
call.
That's because
You talk
that's what
about
I
them as
was going to ask
Palestinians, they're
about.
super confused. Yeah, they're very confused.
And
It
like,
took
there's
me a while
Jewish
to.
Arabs too. Like, how do they
Yes, but they will
reconcile with
never
that?
say that. So they're just called Mizrahim.
Mizrahim.
East from the east.
So they're not
Mizrahim.
actual
Mizrach is
Arabs.
east.
They're a different
No,
category.
no. The Arabs are these hordes. It's hard to explain, but like, yeah, they're different. Now, there is a level where people will use that, like
Hmm.
uh, from even a Zionist perspective, because within Jewish society there is a hierarchy, still a social hierarchy, where European Ashkenazi Jews are still considered like the most intelligent,
Okay.
cultural, blah blah blah, and Mizrahi Jews like they're more aggressive, less cultural, blah blah blah. It's changing over time slowly, but it still exists. Like um, and so if an Ashkenazi Zionist would want to insult a Mizrahi Ashkenazi Jew would want to insult a Mizrahi Jew in Israel, he might tell him, "Yeah, you're Arab,"
Hmm.
like them, kind of.
Okay.
And so I guess it can that can happen, but in general, they don't see them, and definitely most that I know of, I'm not Mizrahi Jewish, so I cannot speak for them, but uh, they won't see themselves as Arabic Jews. A lot of them even lost the language. Like 2 generations ago, so my grandparents' generation, they would come from Arabic-speaking countries.
Yeah.
Not all of Mizrahis are from Arabic-speaking, like Turkey and Iran
Oh
are
yeah.
not Arab, but generally like Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, etc. So they will speak Arabic, but then like they drop that over the generations.
I mean, that makes sense when
And
you're in a country that sees Arabs as the enemy. Why would you keep speaking Arabic?
yeah, exactly. There's some kind of revival of Yiddish, which is
Okay.
a European Jewish language, but it will be very surprised to see uh, any large movement of revival of
Oh,
Jewish Arabic. Like I don't think that will not definitely not in the current current political how do you call it atmosphere? No, political
hmm.
reality. And about Palestinians who live with Israeli citizenship, yeah, they Israelis are very confused about like usually when I used to still argue with Israelis online, usually before October 7th, I was still kind of like maybe I will manage to convince people. I lost all hope about that since October 7th, but and every time I would have this kind of conversation, they will I would always come at some point. People will say, "Why do you call them Palestinians? Uh, are they Palestinians or Israeli? Like they can't be both." You know,
Oh
people are
yeah.
shocked that in Palestinian demonstrations they have the Palestinian flag, but like, uh, and I was like, okay, but which
It's like
people
a
group do you think that like it's the same people group?
it's like a
They
gotcha
all oppose
question almost.
it's. I think it comes from a real place of like, wait, I never thought about them as Palestinians. It's like
Interesting.
they're never being talked about, and it's something that I would argue is intentional from um, the government. Sounds a bit conspiratorial, but like institutionalized. Uh, sorry, from the institutions, it's purposeful because
Hmm.
uh, and I vaguely remember reading about it because the idea was to separate in the first years of Israel's existence. So we're talking late 40s, early
Hmm.
50s, while the Palestinian citizens of Israel were living under martial law, so 66. Um, there were a lot of resources were diverted into monitoring and suppressing their national identity, so
Mm.
that they will not see themselves as part of the greater Palestinian people. Um, Part of it, for example, was to also separate them
Yeah.
internally, Druze, Christians, Muslims. The Druze specifically, it's a long story, but the bottom line is that the Israeli state came to an agreement with the leadership of the Druze, and the agreement was that the Druze men would serve in the army, and they will get. I would call it crumbs, a bit more crumbs than the other
Okay.
Palestinians. So and now Israelis see Druze as it's so weird. They don't like you know how many times I came across people saying, Druze are not Arabs because Arab is
Really?
bad and the
Yeah.
Druze are, with us. They are
Okay.
fighting with us. So like it's all very weird. And the term Israeli Arab, I think was coined exactly to do this, to try to prevent as much as possible Palestinian national identity within the Palestinians in Israel. And I don't want to be on record saying that. So I am on record, but like I might be wrong. So take
Yeah.
it with a grain of salt. But a decade ago in Israel, I read a book, a really good book by Hillel Cohen, who's a researcher, uh, called Good Arabs, Ravim
Mm-hmm.
Tovim, which describes in details from declassified archives that he had access to of the security apparatus of Israel in the first decades, of how deep intelligent organizations in Israel, so the secret police, Shabak, or Shin Bet, as people outside of Israel know it, the army intelligence, police intelligence, etc., Ministry of Interior, how deep they penetrated into Palestinian society in Israel under the under the martial
Interesting.
law. Like they were really everything, all the stories that people hear about the Stasi in Germany, yeah, of like microphones in the walls, or if you saw the movie The Lives of Others, I don't know if you know about it,
I
um,
haven't seen that
of
one.
like how this secret police knew about every little thing that every Palestinian said. That was reality for Palestinians. Sorry, that German said in East Germany. This is a reality for Palestinians. Was to some I mean, in the West Bank still is, in Gaza still
Yeah.
is, but like it was daily reality for Palestinians with Israeli citizenship. So they were like their situation was much like the current occupation in the West Bank, except that they nominally had the right to vote, but they were like spied on constantly. Like the secret police even had to approve school teachers and
Wow.
school principals. I think to this day they still have to approve them. And he went
And
into those archives and he saw how and he writes the book and saw how much they knew about every little thing and how much resources they put into suppressing their national identity. And one of those things, again, take it with a grain of salt because I don't remember the exact details. It was over 15 years ago that I read it. Was never officially speak about Palestinians. Always
mm,
refer to them as Arabs, Arab Israelis, and like hammer that in. So they're not Palestinians. It was
right.
a divide and conquer strategy, and to some extent it works. Of course, Israeli Jews, which we refer to as Israeli, really in this talk, but
Yeah.
um, Israelis are very confused when you talk about them as Palestinians. Generally, of course, there are more people, some people that will be okay with that, some not. But like in general, very confused, and even Palestinian themselves, a lot of them would say, I'm not Palestinian. I'm Arab, Israeli
Mm.
Arab."
So is
Which
are they like does the is the narrative in Israel kind of that okay, they're Arab but they're like almost impotent Arab, like they're not gonna do anything because we have
no, no,
control.
no, no, no. There's that. No, 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 no,
No?
no. There is a term for them. It's a fifth column.
Oh.
Uh, their parties are considered those parties. They used to be in the 50s parties of Palestinians in Israel that were orbiting the main labor Zionist party,
Mm-hmm.
Mapai, the Ben Gurion's party. So they would just do what they told them, like voted with them. But like the actual pro-Palestinian, even anti-Zionist, you're not allowed to be anti-Zionist
Right.
legally as a party. So, but like in practice, they are like Balad and Hadash and the Communist Party also are considered like traitors
Oh,
to most
really?
Israelis. Yeah, they try to illegalize them every time. It's a long,
So
annoying
they're
story.
just as
But
much of an
the
enemy.
point is that yeah, totally. And there were talks, for example, every time that there were in the past talks about Palestinian um, independence in the West Bank
Hmm.
and Gaza, there are some talks about doing area exchange.
Yeah.
So areas that have a bit more Palestinians and then Palestinian citizens will be turned over to the Palestinian state, and in return, Israel will get some settlements, let's say.
Hmm.
Uh, and the way they talk about it is like, yeah, it's so obvious. We don't want Palestinian like those Arabs
Wow.
to be in our country. They're a security risk. Now they still like well they nominally, again I keep saying that word, officially have the same right. In practice, they are like society, the state apparatus views them very suspiciously at best, not
Mm.
outright like. For example, in the past more than a decade, there's a huge crime wave in Palestinian society in Israel, uh, where there was a murder at some point, even every day, but
Wow.
like the police would not do anything because
Interesting.
like why would they like for them it's like good, keep them on their you know killing each other uh, and,
Oh,
uh,
man.
and I have to again I have to put another point in, disclaimer into it, that it's very much depending on the type of Arab you are. Yeah,
Mm.
because like um, Muslims are Palestinians, which are the majority in of all Palestinians, but specifically in Israeli citizens, are considered like the enemy, right? Like they are the big problem. But then there are Christian Arabs, and they more of them go to the army. The average
Yeah.
Israeli will be less stressed next to them, and then there are Druze and other specific groups that are considered, you know,
They're considered.
okay, like they pass. And I can tell you a story from a comrade of mine, also a member of the party.
Hmm. Oh.
Oh, yeah, that disconnected for a second. Can
Okay.
you
I
still
can
hear?
I can still hear you. I just can't see your camera.
All right. Um, so Palestinian, very proud of being Palestinian. Grew up in a biggest Palestinian city in Israel, inside the Green Line. So what we call Israel proper. Uh, Muslim, and she speaks still. I haven't talked to her in over a decade. So, but speaks Hebrew like without an Palestinians tend to have an accent because
Yeah.
their native language is
Hmm.
Arabic, right? So people Israelis spot them. Like it's like everything. It's always a question of how much you pass, right, etc. So so she
And was
wants
your friend Jewish Israeli or was she Palestinian?
no Palestinian. As
Oh,
I said,
okay.
Palestinian with Israeli citizenship, grew up in the state of Israel,
And no
like
accent.
not the West Bank. Uh, very little accent, and so the story is exactly about that. And she comes from a Muslim. She's Muslim, okay,
Hmm.
and I never checked how secular or not she is. It's none of my business, right? But she told me the story that she came to some place in Tel Aviv to buy falafel, right? And
Hmm.
the guy in the falafel stand, the Israeli falafel stand, was hitting on her and telling her something like, "Oh, you're Yemenite. I love Yemenite Yemenite girls.
Is she a
Yemenite."
hijabi?
As in,
Like, is she
uh,
hijabi? Is she like visibly
no, no,
Muslim?
no, no, no. Secular. No, she looks very secular.
Oh, okay,
Again, I don't
okay.
know what she believes in, but um, and he thought she was a Jewish Yemenite. There is a big
Oh,
group
yeah.
of Jews from Yemen, so Taymaniya, as it says. So he's like, "Oh, I love Yemenite. You're Yemenite woman, right? Wow, I really like." And she was
Hmm.
like, "No, I'm Palestinian." And he's like, "What do you mean? You mean Arab?" Like, "Yes, but you're Christian, right?" As
Oh,
if that's
wow.
like
So he's going down the list.
Exactly, but then she was like, "No, I'm Muslim," and he was like totally like shocked and didn't want to continue that conversation. Like, there is a very clear hierarchy for Jews, like about Palestinians who are the enemy, who's a bit less, and who's a bit less. But like at the end of the day, it's always like this when you have social hierarchies. Once you
Hmm.
eliminate, and I really hope that won't happen, but like if, God forbid, one day, you know, Israel will finish the project of ethnic cleansing,
Yeah.
like they will turn on other groups, right?
Right.
Like, okay, first Palestinian Muslims, then Christians, the Druze at some point will also will receive the, you know, the stick. So,
Ah.
like, in any case, I might need to leave soon. So if you have maybe a short question or something, and then we'll say goodbye and we can talk
Well,
in the future.
I have a lot more questions for you. I just don't know how short they're gonna be. So I think I'm gonna.
Well, here's an idea.
Okay.
Write them down, write them to me, and the next time we talk, I'll try
All
to.
right. Let's do it. Let's do it for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was fun talking to you, and we talked even more off the record. But
Yeah, it was like more than 2 hours, I think.
yeah. One question that I do want to ask that for next time is you telling me about the communist Zionists and your experience with those people, because I think that like some of those stories were
What?
fun. The communist Zionists,
Sorry,
and
which?
can you hear me?
I mean, is that? Maybe I. No, I can
Wh-
hear you. I just don't understand what do you mean by that.
Well, you're like the
I think there's
socialist. You're like the
no,
socialist
no, no.
people in Germany that are Zionists and pro Israel.
Yeah, yeah. Anti-Deutsche.
Yeah,
Okay, now I understand. Those, yeah, the Germans that are so guilt-ridden by the Holocaust that they support Israel above everything. Yes, I will try to start with these stories. These were really fucked up stories. Just for anyone who's interested, just Google Anti-Deutsche. Uh, they are an interesting psychological phenomenon.
yeah.
Very
It does
cringe.
seem like one of the
Like
more.
very.
It does seem to be like one of the more interesting characters or like groups of people that have come out of
Yeah, yeah.
this whole issue.
100%. I, if they were not doing some harm to the German left, whatever exists of it, I would completely see them as a joke.
Right.
They are mostly a joke in my mind, but like they do exist, and sometimes they do attract like people to their beliefs. But uh,
Yeah.
maybe we'll keep
For
this as a
next time.
cliffhanger for next time. Okay, have a nice day
Yep.
and well, evening in my case. But
Yeah, I'll let you
okay,
go see your family, and I got to pick up my car. So I'll talk to you
okay.
later. Thanks so much for stopping
All the
by.
best. Bye.
See ya.